Well, Nvidia will report its first quarter results after the bell on Wednesday in the most anticipated earnings announcement of the season. For more on what to expect from the chip giant, let's welcome in now Patrick Moorhead, Moor Insights Strategy, founder, CEO, and chief analyst. Patrick, it is good to see you as always. So got a lot of tech news to go through, Patrick, and you are just the man to run through it all. Let's start with Nvidia. Could be, Patrick, the most important data point of the week for investors. That earnings report, when you read through the analyst previews, Patrick, what some at least seem to say is, listen, this could be kind of a noisy print. You got the H20 ban, the macroeconomic uncertainty, but I'm curious, what do you expect, Patrick, to hear from Jensen Huang tomorrow?
Yeah, so Nvidia has had a double beat for the last 7 quarters, and I don't see any reason why that won't be the case here. Now, those double beats have narrowed, and eventually they're not going to hit it, but I don't think this is going to be the quarter. There's a lot of noise going on, but really only 2 matter. The first one is the potential China risk. I do believe that we will ultimately see a B20 or a Blackwell tuned down card for the Chinese market. But there's also upsides. I want to hear what the Middle East announcements actually mean and when they're going to start to hit. NVIDIA was relatively mum on the details about this, but I think NVIDIA has to talk through that. CapEx, right? We saw all the Mag 7 deliver CapEx forecasts that were in line with their annual guidance, so nothing has changed there. I think the only other thing to do the double click on would be gross margins. I do believe that NVIDIA has been expediting materials. They've been expediting enclosures, pretty much everything to put together Blackwell. So we'll likely see some pressure, but I don't think nearly as much pressure on the gross margin side as we've seen for the last couple of quarters.
And you mentioned what's going on in the Middle East, Patrick, and I'm curious, the deals, the business Jensen Huang is generating over there, how much can that offset what's going on in China?
It can offset it up to about 30% if China went to absolutely zero for NVIDIA. So it's not a net push. The other thing we don't know either is what could those H20s that have been stranded, could they be reworked? We'll probably see the big write-off of those, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all the parts that were work in progress can't be repurposed into some inference type of chip here for the United States.
If I'm an NVIDIA investor and I'm listening to this, Patrick, there are some bulls on the street I know who actually get more excited about the second half. And I'm curious what you think about that. And among the reasons for the excitement, they talk about it, as you suggested there, maybe this China compliant chip. They talk about, hey, listen, the cloud giants, we heard they're going to keep spending, and the business with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Am I missing anything, Patrick?
No, I think NVIDIA's been back-end loaded for a while, and that's when Blackwell hits, which does a lot more tokens per dollar per second. And a lot of the hyperscalers are actually waiting for Blackwell. I do think that they didn't buy as many H series as they could have because the economics are so good for them. I also like the move where NVIDIA de-risked Blackwell a bit by pulling back on an aggressive chassis design, where you can actually use a lot of the same components for the Blackwell 200 as you did for the Blackwell 300. So second half is going to be big. The CapEx forecasts indicate that, and NVIDIA appears to have everything in line. Looks like a little bit less risk than the first half.
I want to switch gears, Patrick, get your thoughts on another tech story, which was Salesforce acquiring Informatica for $8 billion. Here was the skeptical take I saw from RBC's Rishi Jaluria. Rishi telling his clients, while on paper the deal can make sense, integrating MuleSoft, Tableau, and Data Cloud, and using that combination to power Agentforce, given the lack of integration of Salesforce assets, we question this vision, he says. Furthermore, even if this logic makes sense, we wonder if there's any major advantage to buying Informatica versus partnering. What's your response to that, Patrick?
So I do like the thesis here. With all the CIOs that I meet with, one of their top five impediments from rolling out and scaling generative AI is the lack of a coherent data management strategy and the tools to be able to pull all that data. In the Gen AI world, you're going from east and you're going from west as opposed to the ML world, which was north and south. And what that means is instead of just, let's say, uh, activating CRM data. You're connecting CRM with ERP to SCM to all these other data sets. And that's why this makes sense to me. It also is parallel to the big growth in data cloud that we've seen with Salesforce. We've seen this massive growth with even companies like SAP, right? The precursor to big Gen AI action is getting your data in line. I do think the comment is fair about a lack of integration, but I expect that integration to happen and needs to happen at a very quick pace. Complexity is another one of those top issues. And if Salesforce can reduce some of that complexity, reduce some of those steps, reduce some of those operational challenges, I think they have something here.
Do you think, Patrick, if I'm a Salesforce investor, should I be thinking, okay, maybe Mark Benioff is returning to that pattern of large M&A after a hiatus here, or no, the regulatory backdrop is not going to allow that?
No, I would expect more M&A, particularly if we see tepid growth. I don't think he acquired Informatica necessarily for the revenue, but the potential for future revenue and integration. But mark my words, if the growth does not come organically, we are going to see some increased M&A action here. I was surprised that the company didn't make a play for Cloudera. It seems like they would have been more expensive. They're a private company right now, but I do think it would have been a better fit for them.
Finally, Patrick, I want to get your take on all things Apple. You know, the stock did end today higher, but we know the company's dealing with a range of different issues: Trump and tariffs and trade, supply chain questions, the China business. Curious to just get your thoughts on Apple, where that stock is right now, where you see it headed.
Yeah, so let me first talk about the manufacturing iPhones United States. I've heard can't manufacture here for 35 years. 30 years ago, it was, hey, we can't do this in Taiwan or we can't do this in China. 8 years ago, Cook said only China could build iPhones, and now we're suddenly doing this in India. Remember, 5 years ago, TSMC pundits were saying, hey, TSMC can't make chips competitive in the US. And here we are, Arizona, with one mega fab on the docket and three more to go. Now, there are four realities, Josh, behind this. First of all, the US doesn't have a large enough labor pool to hit the scale required. Second of all, we would need more skilled manufacturing laborers and engineers to make this a reality. Third, we would likely need to have more automated manufacturing. And fourth, designs would likely have to be changed to meet that automation. Probably take 5 years to get this in line. The ecosystem would be a challenge. I think a more likely place, Josh, to do iPhone manufacturing would be Mexico, right? And where all of Apple, well, a lot of Taiwanese and Chinese ODMs are already set up doing servers and desktops. Now, servers and desktops aren't like an iPhone, but I believe that they could figure it out and takes away any of the cost issues related that I've seen the quote unquote experts talk about.
But let me ask you this, Patrick. How do you think President Trump reacts if he hears more manufacturers coming to Mexico? Because it seems like, listen, he wants that here. He wants that in Ohio.
Yeah, he won't be happy, but I think it's where we're going to end up. I think Cook is very smart, and so is Apple. And I think what they should do is immediately make a commitment to a manufacturing engineering site with the goal of being able to design and manufacture a certain amount of iPhones here in the United States, to give it that college try, Josh, as opposed to instantly, saying no, which I think was a strategic mistake to do with Trump. And I had posted many times, the administration sees right through this. Let's move this to India and everybody will be happy. That's missing the point, I think.
Patrick, always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Josh.